U.S. tourism is collapsing. $5.7 billion lost. The culprit? America's 51st state comments.
Canadians are abandoning the U.S. 30% drop in 1 month. America wasn't ready for this.
Breaking tonight, Statistics Canada just released numbers that shocked even Mark Carney. Canadians aren't just reducing travel to the United States. They're abandoning it. New data shows a 30% collapse in land crossings and a 24% drop in air travel to America, all in a single month. But here's what nobody saw coming. This isn't a temporary dip. It's a nationwide statement. And Prime Minister Carney, who spent months carefully building Canada's independence strategy, just got blindsided by his own citizens. Turns out Canadians are way ahead of him. When Statistics Canada dropped their October numbers, they weren't telling border towns anything new. Everyone from Windsor to White Rock already felt it. 1.4 million Canadians made return trips from the U.S. by car in October 2025. That's down more than 30% from the same time last year. Return air trips, 437,000, down nearly 24%. These aren't small fluctuations. These are historic shifts, the kind that reshape economies, redefine relationships, and signal something far bigger than tourism statistics. Because what's happening at the border isn't about vacation plans. It's about identity. And Canadians, whether they realize it or not, are voting with their wallets on who they want to be. Everyone believed cross-border shopping would recover after initial tariff tensions. Financial analysts expected Canadian travel to stabilize by fall. Tourism boards assumed Americans and Canadians would return to normal patterns despite political friction. They were all utterly incorrect. When reporters asked tourism experts why the numbers collapsed, the answer was uncomfortable for Washington. It's not economics. It's emotion. Canadians don't feel welcome in Trump's America anymore. The 51st state comments, the tariffs disguised as national security, the casual dismissal of Canadian sovereignty, all of it built resentment that no discount campaign can erase. One travel industry analyst said it plainly, this isn't a temporary dip, it's a change in sentiment. And that sentiment is this, Canadians are done supporting Trump's America. But here's what makes this moment extraordinary. Canadians aren't canceling vacations. They're redirecting them. From Florida to Whistler, from Los Angeles to Vancouver Island, from New York to Montreal. Domestic tourism in Canada has surged, injecting billions into local economies that once competed with American destinations. Hotels are expanding. Airlines are adding domestic routes. Small businesses in towns like Kelowna and St. John's are thriving. And that's not coincidence. That's Mark Carney's support Canadian policy at work. Carney told Canadians months ago, every dollar you spend at home builds our future. And it was meant as a call to action. And Canadians answered it. What started as frustration with Trump has become an expression of pride. Pride in Canadian products, Canadian jobs, Canadian destinations. The boycott may have begun with anger, but it's now about something deeper. It's about choosing Canada, not because America failed, but because Canada succeeded. Across the border, the impact is becoming impossible to ignore. Hotels in upstate New York are slashing prices by 40%. Shopping centers in Buffalo are cutting hours. Gas stations in border towns that relied on weekend traffic from Ontario are shutting down. Even the busiest border crossings are seeing record low activity. U.S. tourism boards are spending millions on ad campaigns, offering discounts, free parking, welcome back perks for Canadians. But Canadians aren't buying it, because what changed isn't just economics. It's emotion. A restaurant owner in Detroit told reporters the lack of Canadian visitors is hurting their bottom line. We do see a loss, he admitted. Hopefully they come back. That's our goal, to let everybody know they're welcome here. But here's the problem. Saying you're welcome doesn't erase months of being called the 51st state. It doesn't undo tariffs that threaten Canadian jobs. And it doesn't change the fact that Trump's America First policy made Canadians feel like second-class neighbors. While U.S. businesses scramble to win Canadians back, Carney's team is quietly turning this sentiment into strategy. The Prime Minister's Buy Canadian and Build at Home initiatives are reinforcing exactly this mindset, turning political frustration into economic resilience. From steel to tourism, Carney's goal has always been the same, make Canada less dependent on American demand. Now it's happening organically, without trade fights, without public clashes, just Canadians making daily choices that reshape an entire economy. Here's the part that's stunning even Carney. He expected Canadians to gradually shift spending patterns over years. Instead, they did it in months. The boycott isn't organized. There's no central campaign, no hashtag movement, no celebrity endorsements. Millions of Canadians, without ever coordinating, without organizing, just decided, we're done. And when that many people shift their spending at once, it doesn't just change numbers on a spreadsheet. It changes the entire economic landscape of what Canadian independence actually means. Meanwhile, tourism boards in Seattle, Buffalo, and upstate New York are scrambling. They're throwing money at campaigns aimed specifically at Canadians. Discounts, special offers, anything to bring back the traffic. But the numbers keep falling, because this isn't about price. Price isn't the issue anymore. It's bigger than that. Those Canadians who used to drive down for gas station snacks and Target runs, they're looking at the whole situation differently now. Why should we? Why hand money to someone who calls you the 51st state? Why spend your weekend in a country whose president treats you like leverage in a trade negotiation? Washington still doesn't get it. Trump wanted America to stand alone. He got what he wanted, just not how he expected. Because now Canada stands alone too, independent, strong, confident. The boycott isn't about hostility, it's about maturity. A quiet statement that Canada has its own identity, its own markets, and its own path forward. The numbers are starting to tell a much bigger story, every dollar. Canadians don't spend in the US as finding a new home. Canadian travel, Canadian entertainment, Canadian infrastructure. That's creating momentum that's hard to reverse. Because when Canadians travel within Canada, they're not just boosting the economy, they're reinforcing the message that Canada doesn't need to lean on anyone. A travel agent named Angela told reporters her business has completely shifted. Families that used to book Florida trips are now asking about Caribbean cruises. Parents who took kids to Disneyland are now exploring Mediterranean tours. Teenagers who spent spring break in California are now planning summer trips to Europe. The pattern is clear. Canadians aren't staying home. They're just going anywhere except America. And that's costing the United States billions. A recent U.S. Travel Association report estimates America will see a 6.3% drop in international visits this year and a 3.2% decline in international tourism spending. That's a loss of $5.7 billion compared to last year. And it's largely driven by fewer Canadians. The travel industry is calling it unprecedented. Border cities are calling it catastrophic. But Canadians are calling it justice. Here's the irony. Trump launched his trade war to strengthen American leverage. Instead, he created the conditions for Canadian independence. His tariffs didn't just hit Canadian businesses, they hit Canadian pride. And when you own national pride, people don't forget. They adapt. They build alternatives. They prove they don't need you. That's exactly what's happening now. Mark Carney never had to tell Canadians to boycott U.S. travel. He didn't need to. Trump did it for him. Every 51st state joke, every tariff threat, every dismissive comment about Canadian sovereignty. All of it pushed Canadians toward the exact conclusion Carney has been working toward for months. Canada doesn't need to define itself by proximity to America. It can define itself by independence from it. What makes this boycott so powerful is that it's not political theater. It's genuine sentiment. Families aren't skipping Disney World to make a statement. They're skipping it because they genuinely don't want to support Trump's America. That's a shift marketing campaigns can't fix. Because you can't advertise your way out of making people feel unwelcome. You can't discount your way back into trust. And you can't offer free parking to repair damaged dignity. The boycott of U.S. travel has become the most successful grassroots economic movement in modern Canadian history. Quiet, organic, unstoppable. No leaders, no organization, just millions of Canadians making the same choice independently. And that's what has Carney stunned. Not that Canadians are rejecting Trump's America, but that they're doing it so decisively, so quickly, and with such unity. This is what Carney meant when he said, Canada should define itself by choice, not by comparison. The Canada of today doesn't measure success by its proximity to America. It measures it by its independence from it. And that's what this boycott truly represents. A shift in national consciousness. Canadians aren't waiting for better trade deals. They're making better choices. Every skip trip to Miami. Every dollar spent in Halifax instead of Honolulu. Every Canadian choosing Canada over the US. It's all part of the same message. Canada doesn't need to rely on Trump's America to thrive. We're not leaving the US behind in anger. We're simply outgrowing it. What started as a reaction to tariffs has become a revolution in mindset. Canadians no longer see their southern neighbor as the center of their world. Just another option. And that terrifies Washington more than any trade war ever could. Because economic sanctitas can be negotiated. Tariffs can be adjusted, But sentiment, once that shifts, it's nearly impossible to reverse. And Canadian sentiment toward Trump's America has shifted permanently. The data from Statistics Canada isn't just about October 2025, it's about the future. Because these aren't travelers delaying trips. They're travelers who found alternatives and realized they prefer them. That hotel in the Rockies, better than anything in Colorado. That restaurant in Quebec City, more interesting than anything in New York. That weekend in Vancouver, more relaxing than Seattle ever was. Mark Carney's vision for Canada was always about strategic independence, energy independence through diversification, economic independence through domestic investment, trade independence through new partnerships. But this is something bigger. This is cultural independence. The realization that Canada doesn't need American validation, American markets, or American approval to thrive. And that's exactly what Carney envisioned all along. A Canada that succeeds not because of America, but despite it. This boycott, it's not anger, it's dignity. Canadians looked at how they were being treated and thought, why are we putting up with this? Once that thought takes root, you can't unthink it. Trump's whole pitch was making America great again. But watch what actually happened. He pushed Canadians so hard that they finally looked around and realized something. Canada's pretty great on its own. Always has been. That's the story Statistics Canada is really telling. Not about declining travel numbers, but about rising Canadian confidence. And Prime Minister Mark Carney, he's watching this unfold with a mixture of pride and disbelief, because he spent months building the infrastructure for Canadian independence. And now, Canadians are racing ahead of him, proving they didn't need permission to choose themselves. They just needed a reason. And Trump gave them plenty. Make sure to leave a comment and subscribe, because this is Canada Next, where independence isn't just policy, it's personal.